Welcome to the GPG show on this lovely Sunday. We've just had a lot of technical issues, so apologies for that. I feel like I'm a little bit thrown off all of a sudden now that I've started to speak live. But no, good to jump in. And this is going to be a really interesting one because for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about all sorts of. We've had some gaming chat actually, and there's been general news here and there. But this one, it's more or less going to be a God of War Ragnarok impressions, going into some potential other news that's been around in the week as well. And we'll see how this thing goes. But so I'm not just the main host today. Me and Luke are going to be kind of jumping between us. And of course, we have our own special guest, BMG, on the show. Let's introduce you. How are you doing tonight? Are you well?
Greetings all. Thank you for having me. I'm very well, thank you. I've recovered from my illness. I've not been so good for past few days, but soldiering on through it, and all good. I'm very excited to talk about a very small game from a publisher developer that no one's really heard of, called God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, all looking forward to it, and I'd be interested to see what you think. But before we get to that, let's just go through the rest of our panel, the illustrious GPG crew. I'm going to start with how I see it on my other screen, not necessarily on YouTube. But Luke, good evening to you. How are you doing? I hear you've done very well in your God of War efforts. Hope you've been well.
Yeah, no, very well, thank you. Yeah, I've finished the main campaign as of about 3 or 4 hours ago, I think. And I've been doing just some of the side stuff as well. So yeah, I'm still in the game. I haven't had the post game come down yet, which will happen, I think, when I'm done with most of the side stuff. But I'm still really, really, really enjoying it, and we'll talk about it. But yes, I've done the main story.
Fantastic. So I think myself, actually, let's get to that. Let's finish introducing everyone first. So last but definitely not least is our fellow co-host and runner of our OBS chat. And don't worry, Scott, all the technical issues will go away at some point. But apart from all that, how have you been? I hope you've been well. Fantastic. And I suppose with that, I think, as you say, Luke, you've actually, BMG, have you completed the game yet? Or how far roughly are you in terms of hours, I guess?
Sorry, just a comment from Stubb saying he can't hear Scott. Don't know if his...
Ooh. So, okay, it was just a massive load of silence. Apologies, everybody.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Sentinel as well saying can't hear Scott.
Okay, that hopefully should be better. Jesus Christ, honestly. We're going to go back to StreamYard from next week. I love OBS, but holy shit, this has been a pain in the arse.
Don't worry, Scott. It's all going perfectly well. These things happen. If anything, it adds comedic value to a stream.
The thing is, Pucks, the first time we used it, it worked like a dream. In every show since, it's just got progressively more difficult. I think it's as soon as I start trying to add like video and things like that in. So I think Stubbs is saying he can hear me now. So I'll not repeat what I said. That can just stay amongst us four. A little treat for you. But hopefully, yeah, everyone can hear me now. That's good to know.
No, that's good news. And I suppose, without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So, Luke, you have, as you tweeted out earlier today, you finished the game. Whether or not you've been blitzing through it, you've done some side bits or whatever else. But I suppose, general impressions. Let's start with you. What did you think of the game? And I think you said also that you tweeted this is your big game of the year contender. And I think the big question before the game came out was, it's looking like it could potentially beat Elden Ring for Game of the Year as a potential. But now that you've finished Ragnarok, how do you compare the two in terms of what your Game of the Year is and your general impressions of the game? And why do you like it so much?
Yeah, I guess for me, and I should preface this by saying I've not finished Elden Ring. I'm about 32 hours into Elden Ring. It's lost to the backlog. Well, it won't be because I will go back to it over Christmas. But I'm I'm a long way through that game, right? So I know that at least in terms of main bosses, there's not that many left. And I'm kind of in a place, I guess, where on that I can make a judgment as to where I think it lands for the year. And I think if anybody says that I've played it, someone's played Elden Ring and they think it's game of the year, like I, totally agree that that's a reasonable, game to put as game of the year. It's an amazing, amazing game. But Ragnarok is, I was a huge fan of 2018 Ragnarok, huge fan of the franchise in general, played the other 3 games, plus the PSP game, plus Ascension as well. So, this is from a really big fan of that franchise anyway. However, it is so far my game of the year because of a lot of different reasons, which I think someone will talk about. And we won't get into spoilers about this game. And really, I don't think we should get into spoilers about 2018 either, because there's some pretty big things in there that I guess some people who are like Scott who are playing it would want to find out for themselves anyway. So this is more of a general chat about it and why it's good or why we don't think it's good or whatever. So, but for me, it's just a like there's. I spoke before, I guess, about going from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2, and that's the kind of leap you want in a sequel, where you have like a really good fundamental first game, and then your second game is, a continuation of that, but it's just so much more polished, so much more vast and impressive. And I didn't think that Ragnarok would be able to do that from the first God of War, because it's not as if, that was a bad game. That was, for many people, like a game of the generation, one of the greatest games ever made, certainly in its genre, for other people as well, including myself. So I didn't think it would be able to match that, even if it was an amazing game in its own right. I actually think it's better than the first game, and it's considerably better in many ways. Just this, and I don't know how far. I know roughly how far BMG's got into it. I think you're about 7 or 8 hours, BMG.
About 7.5. About 7.5 now.
So, Pucks, how many hours are you into it so far?
14, 15.
Okay. So you're okay. So it's a good kind of good level. Got someone who hasn't played it.
A good way through, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. So that's useful. But I think it's just the scale of what's being created here. Like it's the same. Like it's 2018, but everything has been improved. So combat is punchier. There's so many more abilities in this. There are so many more things going on in terms of build crafting, etc. Set pieces, they just seem to be like all the time. There's set pieces all the time. Boss battles have been massively improved. So not just variation, but you also have much bigger bosses. Much more akin to the old God of War games, particularly God of War 3, where you had these just amazingly big set piece bosses. Story is just, it's brilliant. Like it's just kind of typical Sony Santa Monica, recent. And it's, so well acted. I'm just so impressed by how, not just main cast performances, not just Christopher Judge, etc., but all side character performances so good, and it has such a big cast of characters as well, which is surprised me to some extent. Like it's very ensemble-ish in that way, and the writing is fantastic. It's really touching. It's funny. It's witty. It's kind of thoughtful in places. And I'm just kind of blown away by it. I think it looks visually incredible, absolutely incredible. I would genuinely, even though it's a cross-gen game, I would put it up there with some of the best things that I've seen this gen. And it's it's not a next-gen game as in it has a PS4 counterpart. I'm just kind of, it's a bit rambly, but I'm just kind of blown away by it, really. So, I also think as well, and without getting into any spoilers, the thing I was worried about was where and how they were going to end it. You know, and I think what they've done is really good. So, and
Is
that's, you know,
is it conclusive? Is it obviously
uh,
without
yeah,
saying anything? But
yeah,
is it
without spoiling
relatively?
anything,
Yeah.
like I think I think it is conclusive without spoiling. Um,
Mm.
It's a kind of perfect way to finish this saga.
Okay.
It's really really good, and I'd be interested to know. So, Pucks, I know you're 14 hours through it. So, what have your impressions been in that 14 hours? Because that's quite. I mean, I guess in terms of main story, you're probably coming up to halfway, maybe
I
just
think so.
over it.
Yeah.
So,
Again, I can't tell you where I am because I know it might
no,
ruin it for some
no, no,
people.
no.
So even I don't even want to say location names if I can help it. So yeah, I feel like I'm a good way through. There's been, like the story has been. I've been really drawn into the story.
Yeah.
Before I get to that, I know you said graphically it looks phenomenal. You're playing on PS5, I assume.
Yes. Yep,
Yeah, of
that's
course.
right.
So I'm playing on PS4, so I'm at 1080, 30 frames, whatever else, and
Yeah.
like the game for me runs phenomenally well. Like I imagine it's obviously going to look a lot better on PS5. So to a degree, I feel like I'm missing out, and I don't quite have the same experience you do. But at the same time, for me, because I played 2018 God of War beginning to end, I absolutely love that game. For me, it is just more God of War in terms of how it graphically looks. It looks the same, which is fantastic. I'm not knocking it at all, but it is a shame that obviously I don't see those benefits. But that's just part and parcel of playing on last gen. But if anything, it's a testament to how well optimized this game is because of how graphically intensive and how graphically intensive this game is, and there's so much going on. Playing about 14 hours in now, really enjoying the story so far. But one of the things I was saying beforehand was one of the things I really liked is that when you first start in Ragnarok, it jumps straight in. Like it doesn't give you it doesn't necessarily give you any recap as part of the game itself playing. It just jumps straight in from where it left off, and 2018 kind of ends in a bit of a cliffhanger, and then near enough at the beginning of the game, that all kind of happens in full, and you kind of see where the story goes from there. But the one things, what was I going to say? One of the things I did like is more so the contrast of the games, actually, in terms of the story. And again, I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as I can, especially for those who haven't played the original one as well. But one of the things I did like is that, so the 2018 game is very much about the relationship between Kratos and Atreus, a very young Atreus in that case. At the beginning of the game, you find out, again, is this spoiler free? The general story of the first game is that you need to go to a location to do something that your partner asked you to do. I think that's the very spoilerish.
Yeah.
I think even though I've not played the game, I would say I think everything's sort of laid out for the original game. I've got no issues with you guys talking openly about spoilers for the first game. I think it's 4 to 5 years old now. I think if you've not played it, then I think that's fine. So I personally wouldn't dance around.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, spoilers for the first game.
Yeah,
The
story trailer of the first game actually kind of explained what you was doing in the first place and what happened. Sure. So yeah, it's not spoilers.
So I suppose just for completeness, then the first game is about so Kratos' wife, Atreus' mother, she dies. You don't know how or why. It just kind of happens. Maybe you find out in the second game. I don't know yet. But she passes away, and she basically tasks you guys to send her or to drop her ashes at the highest point in all of the realms. That is basically all that is your main objective. That's all it is. It sounds really simple. However, lots of stuff happens in between that journey, and the game is very much about Kratos and Atreus' struggling relationship and how they're trying to form a bond, and they're going through this this experience together, and they're trying to get to, it's all about the father and son figure and the issues of fatherhood and things like this, and it kind of touched on a lot of those elements which got praised magnificently when it first came out, and the game was fantastic. When you then jump into Ragnarok, which is where I was trying to go with all this, it is a different approach. I feel it's not just about that bond anymore. It's more also about Atreus as much as it is about Kratos as well, and how they're trying to, I don't know, they're almost like they feel lost in what they're doing. There's no real objective, at least from the beginning of the game. There's no real objective to what they're doing apart from they're just surviving. And at the beginning of the game, it's been what, 4 or 5 years or so. You know, Atreus is now a teenager. His voice has dropped and all this kind of stuff, which was quite cool to see that progression even from an early stage. But he's figuring things out on his own, and he's discovering things on his own, and he's now trying to figure out things without the help of Kratos, the father. And I like how the dynamic is shifted, and I really like how it's told and how it focuses on each individual as well. I feel like I'm blabbing on a little bit, but I'm going to jump straight over to BMG as well. So on top of what I've just said, you know, what have your impressions been of the story? And, you know, compared to, because you completed the first game, I assume, right?
Yeah, done the first game, yeah.
So on top of all of the stuff I've said, do you have a similar comparison, or do you feel slightly differently about the story from the first one compared to this one?
It's obviously no spoilers or anything, but obviously the first game, God of War 2018, amazing game, absolutely brilliant. I found the story of the first game hit me on a very emotional level. I connected with all the characters; they're well fleshed out. You've got all the backstory. Also with the world, you get the backstory of the world on Odin doing this, that, the other, and with all the other characters and gods. It's well thought out. It's a really, really good game, and Ragnarok just blows God of War 2018 out the water. I seen a comment on Twitter where someone said God of War 2018 is the prologue to God of War Ragnarok, which I completely agree with. And obviously, there's going to be no spoilers here. I highly recommend playing the first game first, because with Ragnarok, there are things that happen in there that relate to the first game, which is quite important to have played through. But it's such an amazing game. That first hour of Ragnarok is just mind-blowing. It's hitting you right from the very start on the get-go. It's just such an amazing game. The story so far, like I say, I'm only 7 hours into it. Me and Luke have been messaging back and forth, and I've had points saying what the fuck and blah blah blah, and it's like I was waiting for you to get to that, and it's like whoa, it's and I don't even think I've barely scratched what's going on, but visually the game, it just looks amazing. The story where I'm at the moment, absolutely gripped me. The characters even more fleshed out than they were in 2018, and we're introduced to a bunch of new characters with all their own backstory and own things going on in the world, which is just, again, you just want to explore, you want to see what's happening, you just want to look at everything. You literally, I'm playing it on the PlayStation 5. You're just walking and you're looking around and thinking, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's this going on? What's that going on? And everything just grabs you. And the story, obviously, you can mainline the story. I think it's about 20 hours-ish, 25 hours if you were just to power on through the story. But the side stuff, the side quests, that aren't just like take Far Cry for example. You've got the main quest, side quests, and you just do the side quests, a little couple of missions, and that's it. They've actually tied these side quests are big set pieces, amazing like battles and events going on, and it all ties into the story. You're getting even more backstory. I easily say this is the best game to date that PlayStation have ever made. Of any game they have done up to date, this is the best I've ever seen. Again, on that emotional level, see, Luke Puxley, you'll know probably towards the start where it hits you with a certain thing that happens, and it's like, oh.
Like
and it's just like
5 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so I could feel myself starting to well up. I was like, no. Well, anyway, I know obviously no story spoilers or anything like that, but I can't recommend this game enough, and it's just amazing. And again, and on the PS5, the DualSense features, calling back that axe, and you feel it as you're grabbing it, and the haptics just like knock your controllers if you've just grabbed it. It's an amazing feeling, absolute amazing feeling. But it's seriously game of the year for me. I think it's going to beat Elden Ring. I think from a story point of view, up to press all that I've played. I think that beats Elden Ring, and it's just an amazing game. And I do believe best thing PlayStation have ever done to date.
Oh wow, that's a pretty big pretty big statement to make. But to be fair, I don't necessarily disagree with it either. And although one of the things I do find interesting, again, I'm going to kind of bring this to the whole Game of the Year talk as well. But guys, by all means, if anything and everything you want to talk about that's not necessarily on point, by all means, just bring it up. But the whole Game of the Year thing's got me kind of thinking in a way because, people. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. So obviously they're two completely different types of games. But one of the things, playing God of War, same with 2018, but Ragnarok, sorry, is exactly the same in that obviously, yeah, some of the worlds are physically larger. There's more to walk around and stuff. And graphically, there's a lot more set pieces. There's a lot more things to do, more places to go, and a lot of the effects are nice. But one of the things which I think the game does quite well is it kind of hides how linear it is. So even though there are these areas, there's kind of like these optional areas where you go. The same in 2018 as well, where you don't have to do them, but if you do decide to do some of the optional stuff, there's kind of like these slightly open areas where you kind of get to walk around a bit, discover some things, do some puzzles. You might find a secret chest or things like that. And this game, Ragnarok, is very similar to that, I find. But overall, the game is very linear. Yet, despite me playing it, I'm not playing it because of the fact I want to discover this big open world. I'm playing it for the story. The game is all about the story, and if the story sucked, I don't think it'd be anywhere near as good as what everyone praised it to be. So the whole game almost relies on its storytelling as well as all the other things that go around it. Whereas a game like Elden Ring, I mean, if you was to ask someone what's the story of Elden Ring, I don't think there's going to be many people outside of the die-hard crowd which can really tell you what's going on from a normal player's perspective. And by normal, I mean someone who's not a big Dark Souls fan. They're not into all the lore. They just kind of maybe played it because it became popular. And I was one of those as well. I liked the way it looked, but I wasn't a Dark Souls fan originally. So the world meant nothing to me. But I was definitely drawn into it. Graphically, it looked phenomenal. And there was all these different things, all these different places you could go, things to discover, a few little puzzles here and there to solve. It was really good. But this game is completely different to that. So I suppose, Luke, I'll come to you on this one. So, again, by all means, add or take away from what I've just said already. But in terms of Game of the Year, do you reckon, what makes Game of the Year, I guess, is my question. Because this game, as you say, story-wise, it's phenomenal. But at least in my opinion, this game is it's all about the story. Without the story, the game, it's not it's not the same thing. It's not the best way to word it, I know. I'm trying to think of how to word it. But do you think, as a Game of the Year contender, what would it take for this game to win Game of the Year? Do you reckon, will this game win Game of the Year because people love the characters? It's already an established character over, a good 2 decades or so. Or is a game like Elden Ring something that would potentially be still a good contender because of the fact it's a game that's done something different? Arguably, this game isn't doing anything different. It's just continuing a story and telling it very well. So I'm going to stop talking now. But what do you think, and what do you have to say about those questions?
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot there. Sorry. So
yeah, no, okay. I think it's really hard to kind of pinpoint what makes a game of the year other than the best game of the year, and that's a very subjective. So, and what people will enjoy any of these games, whether it's Ragnarok, Ring, may massively vary. I know you said Ragnarok is, it's a linear action adventure game, and it story is a really central tenet of it. And do I think the game would fall down if it had a bad story? I don't think it would, actually. I mean, I think it wouldn't be as good of a game if it didn't have a great story. But the one thing I think sometimes it gets overlooked about 2018 God of War, and definitely this one, is it's probably got some of the best third person combat like ever made. It's incredibly satisfying to a level that I don't think many other games match. And it's got so much variation in how you approach combat, and what you can unlock and how you can progress your build, and the abilities. So I think what the one thing I think is great about this game, especially, is that you kind of feel the pull of wanting to do sides just because you're enjoying,
Yeah, that's a good
combat,
point.
enjoying puzzling, enjoying the adventure of it. And you're not necessarily just on the path where, I just want to do the story because really that's the only thing that's amazing about it. I think this game's like one of the best total package games I think been in a long time, where everything in the game. I literally can't point to an element of the game that I think is maybe bad or poorly done, whether that's combat or story, um,
Can I ask you a
audio,
question on that
visuals.
actually? Because I know one of the things in reviews that I saw as like a very minor negative, and the only negative point that seemed to be relatively consistent was like the weapon system, for example, like UI issues and niggles and things like that. I personally don't have much of a problem with it, but people seem to
Yeah.
not like playing the numbers game and things like that. But did you have an issue with anything like that?
No, I think the UI could be better. Like that's not like it's not. Well, it depends. Once you're about to, once you're well into the game, I think you've got used to it
Yeah.
at that point. So the UI element fades away. Initially, it can be a little bit confusing the way they've mapped buttons, the way they've laid out the UI. Weird. The gear system itself, I think, is really good. It's in one sense simplified from the first, but in another sense, much deeper. So there's much more kind of build crafting in this, and many different things to level up, to advance, to try and get your character create more powerful. I can see. I mean, I can see the criticism for sure, but it's not something that impacted me
No,
necessarily.
it doesn't take away
Apart
from the
from
game,
maybe
does
those,
it? No.
yeah, those first couple of hours where you're just getting used to like how the gear system works, armor and yeah, I think the only I'd look back on it. The only criticism I have at any point is there is one section in this game which just kind of drags the pacing down a little, which seems to be a complaint of other people as well. And otherwise, the game has really amazing pacing right from the start. As we've said, the first hour bonkers. Blitz straight through, and then it just keeps going. There's one bit, and obviously I'm not going to spoil it, but there's one bit that does go on for a bit too long, and it was the only point in the game where I felt myself thinking, "Yeah, I'm kind of done with this. Like I want to." But after that, it's maybe that 5-6 hours in, 7 hours in ish. After that, it's just kind of Hail Mary right until the end, basically, and obviously these side quests. And I think on that as well, like just a tangent slightly, but the side quests in the game is being the story about are just are really some of the best I think I've ever played. Because a lot of the time, like bearing in mind this is like a linear game, this is an action like a linear action. So the story progresses along one path, but there are so many times where it just says, right, you can continue the story if you want, or you can go and do some other stuff. And the way it worked in the first game was you had the Lake of the Nine, which in Midgard, which was like this kind of hub area, and there were like different side quests you can do, and the side quests were good, but they weren't like amazing. My voice is apparently, according to chat.
Voice is crackly.
Should we just end the stream, gents, and just pack it in and try again?
It's fine now. It's fine now, apparently.
Cool. Look, the one thing it might be, mate, maybe when you're not chatting, I think it might be when you're a little quieter. I think it cuts out because it's like maybe thinking of it as background noise. So it might be worth checking your input sensitivity on Discord.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yeah.
Roll with. Hopefully that's okay.
Oh no,
but yeah.
I saw your mouth moving there, but no audio came out. So can't continue though, mate. We'll keep an eye on things.
Cool. Well, hopefully, I don't want to move. But yeah, well, hopefully people can hear me. Yeah, in the first game, you had the Lake of the Nine, which is like a hub area. Don't do very good, but not incredible. This game has kind of like 3-4 of those in the game. So these like big hub areas branch out, do side, and they are like actually really big. Some of these areas are really, really big, to the point where they are surprising. Kind of adds to the awe of the game. Into gone.
Not that.
No, the stream's still going. The stream's still going.
Okay.
Would you?
Audio stuff? Is that audio
I
stuff?
think Stubbs might be referring to Luke's audio again. Luke, would you mind just quickly checking your sensitivity in Discord, mate? Your input sensitivity, and just see maybe lowering that a touch. And then I'm going to go and have a big lie down, to be honest. So, as much as I'm enjoying hearing you guys chat about this, I'm literally sitting here just sweating on edge, just waiting for the next tentacle hiccup to occur.
Oh, Stubbs is saying lost Luke.
Yeah, got to remember this. That's about 20 seconds behind as well. So,
yeah.
Stubbs, if you can let us know if you can hear me, Pucks and BMG, okay. And then look, I don't know if you've managed to have a look at your input sensitivity.
Yeah, but I realised that I turned it off. I always turn it off.
Do you, when you say turn it off, do you mean turn the automatic off?
Yes. Yeah.
So you know the slider that's underneath that. How low is that slider?
It's in the middle.
Try taking it down to about 25%.
To the left.
Yeah, to the left. Yeah.
There.
Cool.
See how that is?
Okay, yeah. I think it might be that, because Pucks and BMG were good.
Sensible says that sound is okay so far.
Yeah, so apologies, Luke. Let's go. Let's roll with that. So continue, mate. If you can remember where you got to.
Hub areas, they're really good, and they've got a lot of side quests. And they are very surprising. There are bits which just appear kind of mid-game, late game, that I didn't even know it. Hadn't even seen that they existed. And it's just the way that they do side quests in this game is really, really impressive, and they tie them into story, which is always useful because it gives you an extra motivation above and beyond just combat or exploration or getting higher gear, etc. So I've been really, really impressed by them, and that's kind of usually I'd pretty much be done after I've done the main story. Like I'd just put a game down, even if it's an open world game and there's a lot of side quests, because usually they don't tend to be this good. But actually, I'm really eager to pick it back up and keep going and keep doing stuff. It's just great. It's just been very just love it.
I think it's a good thing as well. That's a really good point as well about the side quests, because you just hit the nail on the head there. And that old game was one big hub world. You kind of was told you had some opportunities to do stuff, whereas in this game, you have like these kind of, dare I say, mini hubs of things to do in various locations, which is really good. But one of the things I did like about those, if you choose to do them, and I encourage people to do so if you're yet to play the game, is that, and this isn't spoilers or anything, but when you do a number of these optional, they call them favors, because there's a lot of dialogue between certain characters as well in a lot of these side quests, and the side quests are basically called favors. It's the same difference. But when you do decide to do them, I like how there's like dialogue will play at certain points in the journey, so it's not detrimental to hear the stuff, to love and understand the story, but it just provides a load of background context as to why certain characters are the way they are, why they're doing what they're doing. So it just kind of completes the picture a bit more, and I really liked that because it's also unsuspecting as well. You could just be doing it for the sake of wanting to explore. For me, I do it because I want to see if there's any better armor and a hidden chest or something. But then before I know it, I've got these conversations are going on, and and you know, there's no like combat in everything in a lot of these sections. It's just maybe just going down some path, or you're like saddling along a wall or something, and then they're just conversing with each other. And I just really liked the amount of extra depth that put into it. It's arguably it's a subtlety to add, but it had a lot of impact on how it makes you feel and what how you understand these characters, and it can definitely change your point of view. Like BMG, do you want to add to that? Like, what did you think of those extra kind of, from what you've played at least? But have you done many of the side quests yet? Are you familiar with what I'm kind of talking about?
Well, I've to say I've finished the sort of the first or second area you sort of come to. I won't spoil where you go or what the context of, you know, the area that you're in and what you're doing. But you sort of the favors side quest to sort of that. You kind of learn why the inhabitants of the area the way they are, why they're so scared and things like that. And you see these things in the big set pieces in the background, things that are going on, and a character. I don't want to say which character, because if you haven't played 2018, it'll spoil a bit. But a certain character kind of explains why this works this way and his involvement in it and what happened, and then you can go and do that by choice. It's not a main story part; it is a side part. You can do it, understand more why things have happened the way they've happened, and these people are the way they are, and why they're so scared and things like that. And it's just amazing how they tie these things into the world. It's not just like you go off and do a side quest, that's it, it's done with. You're seeing the effects before you've done the side quest, and then once you've completed it, you're seeing what sort of happens afterwards and how it ties into things. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing how they do it, and the detail, and you can tell these developers have put everything into this game, and you know, everything's touched, every character's got a purpose. Anyone and anything you interact with has a purpose and a meaning and a backstory, and things that have gone on in the Norse mythology side of things that have affected it. And it's just such an amazing game. And I am, like I say, I'm only like 7.5 hours into it, and I'm just at awe at everything I see. And obviously with the Game of the Year thing, I find the Game of the Year something that, you know, obviously the story, that emotional connection that I feel with the characters. I find that I care about them. I care what's going on and what each character's going through. And if you've done the first game, you can understand a certain character in the second game on how they are emotionally and their motivations towards you. And it's hard. It's hard to talk about stuff without spoiling anything. And obviously, we won't spoil anything yet. You know, we'll eventually do a spoiler cast somewhere down the line where we can just talk open about everything. But everything has a purpose. Everything has a meaning, and you can just connect to the characters. And to me, that, compared to Elden Ring, I had played Elden Ring. I got a refund on Elden Ring because I really didn't enjoy the game. I didn't care for it. I tried it, and I was like, nah, this really isn't for me. But God of War just seems to be, since they rebooted it back in 2018, and the direction they've gone with all the soft reboots. Obviously, it's still carrying on from the Greek mythology story, but they've gone sort of in a different direction. It's literally probably one of the best game series I've ever played. And if you remember the Greek mythology, the big giant set pieces, the gore and things like that, it was all cinematic, and you know, you had a mission, you had a purpose, and the same with these games. There's a reason why you're doing what you're doing and why you're progressing through. It's hard to say anything because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's so hard. But it's just the characters, the detail, especially on the PlayStation 5. You know, you can see the emotion in the faces of the characters, and you know, from sadness to happy to anger. Like Kratos, I don't know what you guys think, but to me, he looks older. he looks more
Yeah,
weary
yeah.
and tired and drained, and he's still trying to show Atreus how to be as best as he can be and prepare him for anything coming in the future. And as you start moving through the story, you can just see it seems to take more and more a toll on him. But it does make it nice when they add these like there's a bit of comedy in there slightly in certain points, which kind of lighten the tone a bit. But it's just such an amazing game, and I could, even with playing 2018 and finishing 2018, I don't think I've played a game quite like this. I literally, as I was saying on Twitter not so long ago, I kind of was having a bit of a lull period with gaming. I was sort of falling out of it and just more watching films and stuff because I'm like, I really can't be bothered. But as soon as I picked up God of War, it's just kind of like, I just want to be in this world constantly. I just want to play games again. I want to get into everything, and it's really good. My only negative that I've come across so far, and Pucks and Luke, you may or may not agree, doesn't even have to be a puzzle. It could be just looking at Summit and Atreus and another certain character say, I don't think you can go over there yet, brother. Maybe you should throw something at that round thing above you. And, literally seconds of looking at it, you'd not even getting chance to look around, think, I need to do this, I need to do that. It's literally seconds, and they're saying, maybe you should do this, or you're looking at something thinking, oh, what's that? Or I don't think you've got the right tools for that yet. That's the only thing that I think that's annoyed me from what I've played so far is they're not giving you a chance to figure things out or look at anything. It's like, no, you can't do that yet. Or maybe you should try this. This might work. Maybe we should go over here because we're not ready to go over there yet. And it's just like, I'd rather have that bit more freedom to find that myself instead of being told you can't do this yet or just do this and it's over and done with. But other than that, it's just, it's like at one point, it's not a spoiler. You're like climbing across a wall and you like start talking to yourself, like having a full-blown conversation about yourself on how another character may react to something you're doing. And it's just, it's just really, really interesting. Then you can hear another character that's at some bottom of this wall that's like shouting up to you, talking to you, and you're answering him whilst talking to yourself. It's just good. There's stuff that's always happening in between, like the transition bits that you're doing when you're moving from one location to another or crossing water. It's not a spoiler because people have seen it. You get in a boat with Atreus and another character, and you have them stories and a bit of backstory of what's going on and things that have happened that have caused X, Y, and Z to happen. And I just can't recommend it enough. It's hard to say much without spoiling anything, and I wouldn't do that. Not yet anyway. But yeah, it's an amazing game, and the side content, everything you're doing, it's all got a purpose and it all ties in.
No, I completely agree. One thing I was going to ask you, Scott, actually, because I know we haven't heard you at all yet. I appreciate you're yet to play Ragnarok, but you are playing 2018, God of War 2018, which is what we're watching on the video now. So, what are your impressions of the game so far? Are you impressed with it, or has it not quite hit you? Because despite us, I know us three have said that we love the 2018 one, loving this one. Equally, I am aware that there are a lot of people, a number of people out there which aren't fans of this type of game. So where does it sit with you? Have you been drawn into the story and the game so far that you're playing in your experience, or are you just kind of playing it just to give it a go, but maybe it's not touching you yet? Where do you sit with it?
I mean, for me, I've really enjoyed what I've played so far. To be honest, it's actually made me regret not picking up a little bit or playing it a bit more sooner. If I'm being completely honest, I've been surprised. I mean, maybe not surprised isn't the right word. I don't think, because I've heard people saying these things, but I've maybe not necessarily paid them attention. But ignoring kind of what I've heard from other people, I've been surprised at how gripping the story I think's been so far. How well that relationship between Kratos and Atreus is portrayed in the game, even in the early parts of the game. I found it to be, just a pretty gripping story so far. The performances, particularly from, remind me who the actor who plays Kratos is again, gents. Luke, I'm sure you know that one, mate.
Oh, sorry.
I missed the end there.
The actor who plays Kratos.
Oh, it's Christopher Judge.
Christopher Judge.
Yeah, that's it. The performance from him is excellent. To be fair, the combat's engaging. The puzzles are good. I'm maybe only about 3 hours in. Obviously, you've got this footage here, so you've got an idea as to where I am in the game. But some of the set pieces already have been pretty amazing. There's one scene, I think I've passed it here, where you enter the woman's home and her home
Freya
comes up off the ground, and I was like, oh, holy shit. I got like, I know obviously they're completely different games. When I was playing A Plague Tale, there were some genuine moments where something would happen, whether it just be a view of something, and it would just maybe go, holy shit. And I got that with that moment. And then it happened again. I don't think it's happened on the video just yet, but when the, what's the snake called? The serpent.
World serpent.
The world serpent. Yeah. That's the one. When that first appears, again, it was just another one of those moments. So, I'm really, really enjoying it so far, and I look forward to hopefully playing it on PC in about 12 months, roughly. I've got a couple of questions for you guys, though. First of all, so I think you kind of touched on it, but and actually one thing that I didn't touch on here actually is because I played it a little while ago. Is the opening scene in 2018 it caught me completely by surprise. When that guy shows up and they have that unbelievable fight,
Superman moment.
Yeah, it completely caught me off guard because I'd never played the original when it first came out. I've avoided any sort of conversation about it. How does the intro to Ragnarok compare to this? Out of interest, because I've heard a lot of people saying it's even better than 2018. Like I say, I thought that opening set piece was unbelievable in this game.
Yeah, it's it's difficult to say without spoiling it. But I think, well, if you look at the themes of that opening hour of the first game, you've got like a really like emotional point, and you have a really epic set piece, which is the stranger fight that you're referring to, and then it kind of goes into the rest of the game. Then you kind of plod on. I think in this first hour you still have both of those things, but you almost have like extra set piece stuff that happens in it as well. So it's in the, as I was saying, it's like the first game's first hour in pure themes, but bigger, kind of more epic, and it has more impact if you've played the first game. I think that first hour, particularly one bit, because it's a culmination, the first hour, in some ways, of everything that people have been waiting for from the first game. So I wondered whether the first hour could match up to 2018's first hour, but I think it's better.
Okay, that's interesting because like I say, that first fight, it was just one of those things where it just had me sort of grinning throughout because what I was watching. I'm sure you guys can appreciate, and that's me coming to it like 4 to 5 years later as well, and it still has that impact. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to play that and seeing how that compares. Another element that I was a little bit surprised at was I didn't realize, believe it or not, that it had the gear system that it has at the moment. I was a little bit surprised that it had that sort of almost, the RPG element of, I guess, crafting and leveling up gear and runes and things like that. I thought it was a little bit more shallow, if that makes sense. So it's been cool just to see the upgrades that I've got. I think one of the concerns that I had a little bit earlier on was I was a little worried that the combat was going to get a bit repetitive, because it's kind of just RB for light, RT for heavy. Obviously, you can throw as well, and the first few fights were just kind of a little bit like that. But then as I've played a little bit more, I've unlocked the ability with the shield. I've unlocked a heavy combo. I've unlocked like an ice salam. Apologies, I appreciate these have gotten names. I can't recall the names. And that's just in the first few hours. So it's been really cool to see how the combat progresses. I don't know if you get new weapons in this. I'm curious to see how that pans out. I see BMG having a little bit of a grin there when I said that. So I'm assuming something happens there. But Luke, you touched on the combat a bit earlier as well. So I'm curious to hear from Pucks and BMGs how you found the combat compared to the original. Is it better in your opinion? Have they managed to make it more varied and more fun? How you guys found that?
I kind of mirror what Luke said earlier about this, actually, in that, in terms of a lot of the layout is the same in terms of the buttons and stuff. And when you unlock more skills, I think this isn't really a spoiler or anything. There is a skill tree in the game. You get experience points, and you can kind of put it to unlock like an extra move or something. And I think the only thing, and I believe I found it, from what I remember finding it's quite finicky in the first game, and it's not changed much for me in this game. Maybe it's just the way I approach the combat. I don't know. But some of the button combos and what you need to do to trigger certain effects can sometimes, in my opinion, be a bit flaky. Like and I think for both games, there was this move that you can unlock where you press the right trigger, and on the description it says that you need to wait until your character's standing on the opposite stance, and you press the attack button again. You do like another attack, and you then do one more, and you kind of chain 3 attacks. And times like that, like I can pull it off fine, but at the same time, when you're in the heat of the moment and you're trying to, maybe got a horde of enemies around you and you're trying to clear them out, sometimes for me the timing for it can sometimes be too precise that you end up not doing what I want to do, which I did find a bit irritating. As in, I do find it irritating now, and I did find it irritating then as well. But overall, again, what Luke was saying earlier, that it does feel more. It's more punchy, if that makes sense. It kind of feels like, it felt like they hurt. The hits felt like they hurt back then, but it's just been refined to the point where it now feels like it has more of a crunch to it. And not only that, the camera work in the game, it's so subtle. But even when if you're not moving the camera and you're not moving the character, you're just stationary, not even touching the controller. Like the camera has a very natural kind of like,
it's like a bob,
sway or a bob to it.
Yeah.
Like it's reacting, almost like it's reacting to the wind or the environment. It's not consistent, which is why I say it's not just a sway or a bob like in most games. Like, it's not a breathing. It's almost like it's going with the wind a little bit.
It's funny you mentioned the camera, Puck. Sorry to interrupt, because I remember. I'm going to somehow bring this to Halo. I remember before Halo Infinite came out, there were rumors, and I think they kind of did this a little bit. Is people were talking about how it took some inspiration from God of War. And I think what people were referring to is kind of like that one cut thing, if that's the right term. And I never really understood what that was at the time. I never really could appreciate what they were saying. And speaking of the camera, I'm assuming they continue that in Ragnarok, but in the first game, that's one of the things that I found a lot more impressive than I would have expected, is just how it transitions between you controlling Kratos to the cutscenes that are in the game, and how naturally all that transitions between the different scenes to create. And it's honestly one of the first times that I can recall where I can really appreciate the fact that it's a cinematic experience. And I don't think I really played a game like this that offers that type of experience, if I'm being completely honest. That almost if I take it from Jez Cord and that almost filmic experience of the game, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So it's interesting that you say that, and like I say, I assume it kind of carries on that sort of in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah, it continues. In fact, it's actually, I think there's points in this game where it's even more impressive than 2018 in the way that it does it. So there's, to keep it vague, there are at times, dreams. Characters have dreams, and it will transition someone from an environment, laying on their bed, and then in the same shot, it will transition them to a new environment. Which is really amazing. Like when you think about what is going on, in kind of engine terms there, and also the fact that it's not as if they have like an SSD to take advantage of quickly loading in assets, right? It's like really, really impressive. So they continue it here, and here it's almost more impressive because I guess there's so much variation in terms of where you're going and when you're going there and things that happen and the way you move through the environment and then big set pieces, and it's all just seamless, right? So it must be a nightmare to plan this stuff out. Like thinking about it, like to be able to do it anyway with the first game must have been I remember them talking about that it was quite difficult to do. They really struggled with it, but then they got the hang of it. And you can just see that they've become really confident in this one with it. Like they can just be like, that's how the game is now.
Yeah.
It's just one cut. So, it's really, really good, really impressive.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually, as well, regarding just how impressive that is. Because I know it's not. I'm just thinking of one off the top of the head, but like Super Mario Odyssey or a game like that, something that's level based, like. No game to a AAA scale is easy to make, but when something's level based, there's that segmentation there that once you're on one level, you don't care about what the other one looks like because it's an entirely separate thing. But when you've got this whole cinematic experience when it's all gels together, there's no loading screen, there's no cut, it's all just consistent and continuous. As Luke was saying, like what the magic going on behind the scenes is so impressive as to how they've pulled it off.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, BMG, mate.
No, you're all right. I was going to say, if once you finished God of War 2018, highly recommend going on YouTube and watching the documentary Raising Kratos.
Yeah,
complete behind the scenes. It's amazing. You seeing the actors, seeing the things that they're doing, how they did things, and like Christopher Judge, who plays Kratos. You see some of the his real life experiences that he brought into the game that you feel. You're not at that point yet, Scott, but you'll get to a certain point. Not going to spoil anything, where you feel this connection, and his pain and his upset, and them feelings that you see in the game are feelings that Christopher Judge, the actor, has actually pulled from his actual life experiences and something that he's had going on through his life. One of the main things that attracted him to this game was that father-son dynamic and the things that he's gone through with his one of his sons, and he's been able to relate this to the game. And you can just see, from all the actors as well as the developers, all that behind the scenes stuff and the passion, the feeling, all bringing life experiences into this. And that's why it's just so hard when you look at other games, whether it's a different game company. It's like, I've never seen anything so emotionally connected than what the God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok's done. And it's just amazing to see, and you feel it. That's what makes it feel Game of the Year to me. You actually feel what they're feeling, and it makes you relate to some things that I've gone through in life and things and stuff that I've experienced. I've managed to relate to this game as well as 2018, and it's just amazing.
Was 2018 Christopher Judge's first gig as Kratos?
Yep.
Yeah.
Was I don't have much of a history with the franchise to to be honest. Were the original games as heavy, dare I say, from a story perspective and from an emotional perspective? Was it very much sort of just purely focused on the action and violence and things like that? So it's an interesting change of direction, I guess, going from those original games to this, which has kind of elevated the game completely, or the franchise, I should say.
David Jaffe, he was the director of the original games. And obviously he did like Twisted Metal and stuff, and he's part of the PlayStation now. But yeah, it's pretty much... obviously, if you haven't played the original God of Wars now, then sorry. But he pretty much gets conned into killing his own family out of rage and anger, and then decides he hates all the gods, so he goes and murders them all. And you find out Zeus is his dad, and then he murders him.
And then he effectively destroys Greece.
Yeah, pretty much.
He destroys entire, like, hundreds of thousands of civilians because of his actions.
So is this is the 2018 game, is that a continuation of the original story, or is it an entirely new sort of lineage almost in it?
No, it's a continuation. So it doesn't ever actually implicitly explain how Kratos is here. Yeah. But the way that the developers, the way that Corey Barlog spoke about it, was that he just envisaged in this world where Kratos is, these mythologies effectively coexist with each other. And the point being that, a mythology is tied to a place. So, Norse mythology is, Scandinavian essentially. Yeah. So all that happened is Kratos goes to somewhere Norway, somewhere like that. That's where he is. So he goes from Greece, he travels to here. So because I think people initially were like, well, how? It's all like, it sounds great as a concept, but does it work? But when you just have that, like, everybody thought it'd be some like weird time travel or portal stuff, and it's not. It just gets a boat. Yeah. And he goes, he goes to like Iceland or whatever. So that's literally it. But yeah, the first 3 games are amazing. I love the original theory. And like, for some people, they don't like, the new direction of God of War. And I think that's fine, because for some people, they never wanted God of War to tell them like an engaging like story, or try and get emotional resonance with them, because there are other games that do that. And I think a lot of people were really skeptical based on the first 3 games of how on earth do you take Kratos and make him, make you have some empathy or some sympathy for him, or make him relatable, because he's literally a demigod who killed, basically an entire country. And the first 3 games have no emotional nuance at all. It's all kind of vengeance, action, revenge. So that was like and I was skeptical about that, because like, how do you redeem like a character that's just like completely irredeemable, really, in many of the things that he's done. But I think the way they did it was just like, it was just really simple. It's just to pair him back. They got a new voice actor because they wanted that range, right? Because the original voice actor, all he did was just, scream because Kratos is angry all the time. Yeah. And just to make it a really down-to-earth, relatable kind of meta story within this fantastical world, which is just the father-son thing. That's it. And, talking about, can you, redeem yourself, and how can a person be redeemed, and how can they improve themselves, or can they be redeemed even if they've done awful things? So it's, it's a really emotionally resonant story for many people. Even if you don't have a kid, you can relate to the other elements of the story. And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons 2018 was so impressive, and that it did so well, because it really caught people off guard of like, oh, this is really deep. And I think like, like Last of Us Part 2, these are like really dark, deep games that have really emotional, resonant themes, right? And that are really engaging on that level. I think this is just as engaging as those games, which is really impressive considering how fantastical this world is, and how ridiculous in a lot of ways it is compared to that world, right? So, just It's just so well written. It's just they've done exceptionally well with it.
On the subject of traits, that's actually one of the things I'm really curious as to how this game pans out. There was actually a moment that's in the footage that was a little bit in the past now when you first meet that woman after the incident with the boar, and she sends Atreus out to go and get a flower in the garden. And she turns, like her sort of personality instantly changes, and she's like, I know who you are. You're not welcome here effectively, or you won't be welcomed here. Not that she doesn't welcome him here. And she calls out the fact that Atreus doesn't necessarily know who Kratos is. So I'm really curious as to how that storyline pans out throughout the rest of the game. But I guess a question for you guys, and anyone feel free to pick this up, is how does that relationship develop in the second game? Because I guess maybe a fear of mine could be, well, if it's the same thing again, we're going back to, dare I say, the sad dad story. But you know, this story where it's Kratos trying to essentially establish and develop this relationship with his son. Does that become old, or are they able to develop that story even further and continue to build that relationship between the two of them, if that makes sense?
I think go on.
Sorry, no, you go, mate, you go.
So I think one of the things I found interesting, as you say, is as the story of Ragnarok develops, you know, again, Atreus is older now, and he's doing some things on his own and all this kind of stuff that you don't necessarily see, but it's just kind of inferred because, again, it's a few years in the future and all that kind of stuff compared to the 2018. But it ends up being, you know, like Kratos still has secrets, Atreus has his own secrets and things he can't or won't say, and there's all this kind of information which all these different characters kind of seem to have. Some know bits of it, some don't. They can't say it for various reasons, and even as a player, like you don't always know the reasons yourself. It's just inferred that there's things going on. This character seems to know something, but he can't say it yet. And again, all will be revealed as you play, I'm sure. But it's one of those things that goes from Kratos keeping everything secret, and then, you know, and in 2018 things develop, whatever else. But the relationship does grow, but it's not all hunky dory. It's not like, you know, it's not like everyone's an open book. There's all sorts of things which can or won't be said, and that affects how the characters interact with each other as well. And again, it's from a pure story element, it just drives it so well, I find, because there's points you're sitting there thinking like, why can't you just say this? Why can't you do this? Why can't you be like that? But then as you say, you have to remember who Kratos is, what's his past like. And even if, like, I'm like you, Scott, I haven't really played much of the previous games before, but there are various story beats in the game. Especially, this is why I encourage people to do the side quests as well, because there are moments when there's dialogue and Kratos will talk about himself in the past.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to play the games to understand what he's done, because he tells you that stuff. You kind of find out without needing to play all of the games over the last 15 odd years. So it kind of helps fill in those blanks, and you kind of go, oh Christ, okay, so I get more so than I thought I did, why he's the way he is and why he doesn't want to do certain things, and why he behaves the way he does to raise Atreus as his son, you know, like why he's so hard on him, why he's tough. And again, I won't say what he says, but it develops in that way. And then Atreus does his own stuff and figures things out, and for various reasons he can't say those things, and there's a lot of tension and strain between them, and it's annoying as a player, but it's a good annoying, because you understand it's part of the story. You know you're going to find out at some point, but you don't know how it's all going to happen. So that's what, at least for me, that's what grips me to want to keep. Well, one of the reasons what grips me to keep playing, because it's just like you're all annoying me, but like I know why you're all doing it, and I want to find out how it concludes. And it's one of the many reasons why I keep playing. But no, BMG, you go ahead as well.
Pretty much the same sort of thing I was going to say, to be honest. It's but yeah, you're going into God of War 2018. It's Kratos. He's trying to escape his past, trying to redeem himself. He meets his wife. They have a kid. He's trying to be a father and a husband, but obviously mother passes, and he then has to become that parent while also trying to control that rage he's still got, that anger that's still there, and trying to be a father, but not bringing him too close and be keeping him at a distance because of everything that went on in the past. I find that they don't directly say that's a connection, but I felt personally that what went on with his previous wife and his family that he killed, he almost feels like his purpose keeps Atreus at a arm's length because he doesn't want that to happen again, but whilst also trying to train him, build a relationship that's really strained. And as you progress through that game, you see the dynamic change, things progress. I won't go into what happens or anything like that, but I find going into Ragnarok that there seems to be a better relationship there, but there's also, again, as Buck says, there's a lot of secrets. There's things that aren't being said, and you can almost see Kratos seems to be a bit more naive, and I don't know if it's because I'm not far enough in the story, but I'm at a point where something's happened and Kratos doesn't seem overly bothered with it. He's not really questioning it or getting angry. He just takes Atreus' word for what he says, and it's like I don't know. I don't know if that's him just trying to be more understanding of his son or anything like that. But it'll be interesting for me to progress further, which after we finish on here, I'll be playing some more to push the story a bit more forward and just see what happens. But it's that dynamic, and it's so interesting to see what's going to happen because, as I say, from our point of view, we're seeing stuff from both sides, as Puck says, but then as the characters, it's like they don't know what's happened yet, and it's like it's just how it's going to come together, and how this is the game. This game is, they're not doing a trilogy. This is the final one in Norse mythology, from what they've said. So it'll be interesting how I progress and get to that end game and how it all comes together. And I can't wait. I'm just so excited to keep playing.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, like, I mean, obviously I have the benefit of having done the story now, so I can kind of look back and talk about it a bit. But so I think the first game, really, the core plot isn't even everything that's going on around you. It is Kratos and Atreus and their relationship. Like that's the main thing. And obviously there are sub elements to that about how can we change who we are? Can we change our past? What do we have to do with our past? How do we, what do we do going forward after the things we've done? All of which applies to the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. And like I said, everything else is almost kind of ancillary, even though there are grander things that are happening in this world and that are, set up by what Kratos and Atreus do. I think in this game, there's kind of, you've almost got this grand thing that's happening, right? This kind of grand plot that involves many other characters. And then the through of all of it is still the relationship between Kratos and Atreus, but it's different because of what's happened in the first game. Again, without spoiling the first game, So, Atreus is older, and the relationship is better, but it's strange because Atreus is older and he's got more of a mind of his own, and he's doing things that Kratos doesn't want him to do, right? And then so that's kind of the way that it changes, but it's not the same kind of theme of that relationship as in the first game. They have tweaked it, naturally, because they're in a place where that relationship would be different in the second game because of everything that happened in the first game. So there's that, and then there's kind of an overarching theme in this game about fate, almost like can we change where we're going, right, or where people think we're going. That's like a huge element of the game, like where are we going to end up, and that involves all the characters, but particularly Kratos and Atreus. So the narrative direction of this game is kind of a lot grander than the first game, but it has this very contained emotional core of this relationship, and that kind of builds, everything is built around that, right? Even if it's much greater in scope than the first game.
Cool. We did get a question actually from somebody. I think it might be really difficult to answer this if I'm being completely honest, especially without Spawn. Look, you may be best to answer this. If you can, obviously, if you can't, just say. But Sentinel did ask, where do you think the God of War franchise is going after Ragnarok? Is it more in North's Christ? Why can't I say that? North mythology, Jesus Christ, or another culture. Now I think you've touched on it there. I think they've spoken about that directly, so we know where it's not going to go. But how are your thoughts and feelings on the future of the God of War franchise after completing this? I appreciate that will be very difficult to answer without without spoiling it. But if you're able to,
I'll try and be as vague as I can be, I suppose. No, I think, I mean, as you say, they've said that this is it for the Norse mythology element of it. So I don't know where we go next. I know that when they were looking at, and I think they might even say this in the documentary, or Barlog said it elsewhere, but when they were looking at rebooting, the two places they were thinking about were the two things they were thinking about were either something in Norse mythology or some Egyptian-based mythology game. That those were the real kind of areas of focus. So whether they go to Egypt next and do something, I don't know. But what I will say is that they don't. The game ends in a way that is satisfactory, without limiting lots of directions it can go in, is what I would. So, and hopefully that's not. I know some people are super. That's not a spoiler, but that they do it in a satisfactory way, but I don't think it cuts off other things. So I'm really, like, having completed it, I'm really interested to see where they do go, because there's a lot of doing stuff. But to be honest, whatever the next game is, I don't think we'll see it for maybe a long time, right? Because doesn't look like it looks like Corey Barlog is working on something else, non God of War, and that seems to be the thing that most of the studio will go on to next. So I don't know what that thing is. And another thing that I noticed, which was quite interesting as well, which I didn't know, but I knew that Alana Pierce had joined Sony Santa Monica a couple of years now as a writer, and I'd always assumed that she was working on this, but she's not. She's not in the credits or anything like that. So,
yeah. I remember seeing that on Twitter not too long ago, Luke, I think.
Yeah, I think she might have said, but I'd never seen it. So, but yeah, it does confirm in the credits, it's not there. So whatever she's working on is not this, Sony Santa Monica. So it suggests that I think they're going to give kind of God of War a bit of a rest. Not that it really needs one, because you could easily make another game and go straight into that. It's not as if people have God of War fatigue at the moment. So but I think they're probably making something IP, and then they will come back to this. And so where they go next with it, I don't know, but I'm super excited to see where that is.
Those that thing, isn't it, when a game ends and you just want more.
Yeah, you just want to know more, especially if you're invested in the story. Because you're like, well, what's happening now? Like, where's this all going to go next?
I'm absolutely certain that you're going to double dip, though, Luke. When
for PC?
Yeah. I imagine when Ragnarok comes to PC, you'll be dying to put that 4090 through its paces with.
Yeah, I think
Ragnarok.
I think I will. I will. Maybe I could. Maybe through pure strength, I could overcome all the corridor squeezing and the squeezing between walls. Like, maybe it's that powerful, I can just eliminate that bit. Just
teleports onto the other side.
Woof, straight through. But yeah, no, I think it's God. I mean, like, visually, like I said, I know I said this already, but it's so, like, on PlayStation 5, it's so impressive. And also, like, 2 points to note. One, I have think I'm on 28 hours playthrough. I've encountered precisely 0 bugs. So there's not. It's immaculately polished. It is ridiculously well polished. So that's really impressive. And on PlayStation 5, performance is just flawless. I had one area where it dropped in frames. By area, I mean in one combat segment, which was an optional one. There was a lot of particle effects going on. It dropped a couple of frames, so it was noticed below 6, and that's the only frame dip at the game. It looks extremely sharp in performance mode. It looks pretty much like native. And you can do the high performance mode, which you need ideally VRR for as well. Luckily, the TV I played it on has that, and obviously 20 as well. That is just ridiculously smooth. It is unbelievable. I don't know what frame rate it's running at, but I think it's in the 80s to 90s. But it's basically a seamless, flawless experience. You would think it's probably running 120, mostly because of the VRR. They should be really commended with how many options they give you on PlayStation 5, how well it runs, how good it looks. And like I said, it's one of the most impressive games just in the last few years, and that includes everything out there. It's just incredible. Like, it's an incredible effort from them, I think.
Yeah. BMG, what mode did you opt for in the end?
Always go performance. I'm not used to 60 frames. I did the whole, because now the games that are coming out now, you can seamlessly switch between them without having to restart the game. So I went through a couple of parts where I'd switch it between quality and performance, and I just can't play quality because you just move and the camera just feels like it's juddering, and it's not. It's clearly not, but that's what it feels like. But no, performance all the way. Any game, I'll choose frames over resolution any day of the week, and it's just so, that 60 smooth is just like, it's just so nice. But yeah, no, 60 frames all the way for me. Performance mode.
Yeah, I think I'm generally the same. I mean, this footage here from 2018, even just on my little laptop, which just got a little baby 3060 in it, I still thought the game looked unbelievably impressive at 60 FPS. I don't think the footage here does it justice, to be honest, but here's one of the moments earlier that I mentioned earlier where I kind of, when it happened, it kind of just blew me away a little bit. So Pucks, obviously you're playing on a PS4, so you're limited to the 30 FPS mode. Is it? Will you be double dipping? Will you be jumping back in when you get a PS5? Do you think to see how it looks?
I imagine by the time I get a PS5, there'll be so many other new things I'd want to play that I wouldn't double dip to the point where it's hard to say. Instinctively right now, I may boot it up to just admire the better quality and the higher frame rate, but I don't necessarily think, as of right now, that I would sit and do the next, I wouldn't sit and complete another 30-hour adventure, whatever it is. I'd probably play it to see how it looks and how it performs and be like, oh, yeah, this is really good. And then probably jump on the thing that I wanted to play, if that makes sense. But you know what? I mean, speaking about frames and stuff, I've been really impressed so far. Again, I know arguably on PS4, I know no different, and I can't change that, but it plays phenomenally well. Like, and I appreciate there are a lot of people out there who are quite sensitive to lower frame rates now, especially if you're used to 60. But the game isn't fast-paced enough, in my opinion, that you really notice it that much. Again, I mean, I know BMG said if you go from one playing 60 and you jump straight to 30, of course it's noticeable. But when you've known no different, starting it from scratch, like it doesn't like bother me at all. Like, you don't notice that it's slower necessarily because the game pacing isn't fast enough to warrant needing to be quicker. It's not like a run and gun Call of Duty game. The combat is fantastic, but it's arguably not fast-paced combat, if you understand what I mean. So, although there are quick moments, of course, but you get what I mean. Overall, it's not a fast-paced combat game. So, I've been really impressed with it so far. So, I can only imagine how much better it looks like for these other two guys playing it on their juicy PS5. So, yes, long story short, I probably would boot it up again in the future, but yeah, I don't know whether or not I'd play the whole game again. Depends on my mood. So see how
A,
I feel at the moment.
a pro tip is not, if you play it on the PlayStation 5, do not experiment with the high performance, high frame rate mode, which is one above 60, and then switch it accidentally to quality mode on standard frame rates, which is native 4K at 30 FPS. Because it is literally like loading up a PowerPoint presentation straight after experiencing it. So, like in isolation, 30 is fine, as you say. But yeah, when you go from high frame rate down to that, it's disgraceful. I mean, it's just it's just horrible.
That transition's always really jarring, isn't it?
It's super rough.
Yeah, even from 60 to 30, but from higher than 60 to 30.
To 30, yeah. If it's like 120 to 60, it's not too bad. I mean, it's pretty rough, but it's not like it's completely doable. But as you say, if you get over 60 and then you go down to 30, it's just horrendous.
I've done that transition on some other, on Series X. I've done that transition on some other games, and so I can appreciate what you're talking about. I just can't obviously relate it to this game directly, but I can appreciate the irkiness of it all if you're able to do it on the fly. So
there is you can actually, through the PlayStation 5 in your settings, when you get it, you can actually set everything up so when you're booting up a game, it'll automatically be in performance mode or quality mode. I remember messing about with it not so long ago, so it kind of have your preferred settings already in place. So when you boot up a game on the PlayStation 5, it'll automatically put it in them settings for you, and then you can tweak them. Because that's the thing, you can like mess with the HDR and stuff like that, tweak them here and there, and the colours. I don't mess with that because I think I'd get overly obsessed and I would be back and forth for hours on end just trying to make it look perfect. But yeah, no, I would always go. I used to be, when I was on like Xbox One, PlayStation 4. I just wanted it to look beautiful. I wanted it to look amazing. And now, with the Series X and the PlayStation 5, it's just the frame rate. You just can't beat that smoothness in just like panning the camera around, walking around, and it still looks good. Because they do, like, PlayStation 5 does the checkerboard 4K in. So it still looks amazing. Yeah. It still looks amazing. And it does look amazing on PlayStation 4. I don't know what they've done. Yeah, it's in 30 frames, but the game just looks absolutely beautiful. 2018, the same. The game just looks amazing. And it's like, how have they managed to make it look so good on that hardware? Even, like, say, you got Ragnarok out now, which looks beautiful, but it still looks beautiful on the PlayStation 4 as well. And they've done an amazing job. I just can't knock them for it.
I think that's an important part as well, isn't it? Because I think they've even come out and said that the game has been designed to be on PS4. Like, it's not a PS5 game, if that makes sense. It's been made to run as well as it can and push the PS4 to its absolute limit. So, and they've definitely done that here. And I think before the stream cut out earlier, I think I said something to the effect that, graphically, yes, it looks good, at least, from what I'm playing, but it doesn't blow me away in that it looks much different at all from 2018. Arguably, it looks the same graphically for me because, there's only so far you can push old hardware. So if anything, it feels like it is a PS4 game, but it's got this massive PS5 booster pack added onto it, if that makes sense, to bolster it a lot more. So, no, I've been really impressed with it.
Yeah, I think it's like it's not. There are visual improvements from the from 2018, but it's not. It's not like, first of all, that game is still one of the best looking games out there, like on any platform, because it's just so impressive it is, and that complete, like, the fact that it runs on PlayStation and it was built for PlayStation 4, quite amazing. Shows how talented they are as devs, but it's not like the same leap, and I always come back to this one, as like Horizon Zero Dawn to Horizon Forbidden West, like game to game. Again, those, both built on PlayStation 4 effect. But Forbidden West, it's just like the engine upgrade that got, and Zero Dawn was already super impressive looking game. But Forbidden West is just like a huge step up, even on PlayStation 4. It looks like it was made like from beginning to the end of a generation kind of. Yeah, so like it's not like that. It's not that level, but with the 60 FPS on PlayStation 5 in particular, and the HDR, and then that you've got a high, a resolution that looks, effectively 4K, combined with how impressive it looks visually anyway, in terms of geometry and text and animations, really amazing. Particle, like, it just blows you away. Like, if you're watching it on a good display, if you're playing it on a good display as well, it's really, it's like a sensory overload to look at on screen. It's really, really.
If anyone is actually looking for a PlayStation 5, I got an email through yesterday, and they are actually available in the PlayStation Store if anybody is currently looking for one.
Oh, no, is that on its own, or is that with a game or something?
It offers, they've got some digital, some disc. You can get as bundle, but you can only get the disc version console only at the moment. But they'll go quick, I would assume. But yeah, I got my email yesterday, as well as my PlayStation VR 2 email asking me to reserve it.
Yeah, I got mine yesterday.
So yeah, that's Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Are you both pre-ordering that? I know we mentioned on the previous show, but obviously you weren't at BMG. Are you jumping on the PSVR 2 bandwagon, BMG? Or?
I'm going to pre-order it. I'm going to pre-order it, but whether I decide to actually go for it, we'll see. I do want it, but looking at the games that they've announced for it, which nothing's really been announced as release games, I'm like, the price of it, is it worth getting it if there's not much on offer yet? But we'll see. I'm going to pre-order it. Pre-orders definitely, but come February, we'll see, because anything could happen between now and then. Got Christmas to get through yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Scott? Are you jumping on the PS5 bandwagon anytime soon?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, Pucks. With us like saving for a wedding and things like that, and also with the fact that I'm having to sell kidneys to heat my home and things, the economic outlook at the moment isn't ideal. It's something that I would like to pick up. I mean, ideally, I would just like Sony to release their games on PC a little bit sooner, if I'm being completely honest, so I can play them on there. I would still like to build a rig at some point in the near future. So I'll have to see, to be honest. I'm hoping that window shortens, and then I've got less need to, mainly because I don't necessarily. And this might sound weird, but I don't necessarily want a console that I'm just going to play like maybe once or twice a year, if that makes sense. If you look at like the Switch, for example, I don't bloody play that thing at the moment, and then a Mario will come out and I'll play that, and then it'll collect dust for a while. And I think
there's not much in the PlayStation collection that you like the look of, I guess, then, apart from things like maybe God of War.
Yeah, well, obviously there's the games that they've already brought to PC. That I can check. Obviously, God of War. I'm not really too interested in Horizon, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, I appreciate you guys seem to speak quite highly of it, but that doesn't interest me too much. And honestly, same with Spider-Man. I think I've seen too much of Spider-Man now, where it's kind of like I'm not too sure if I'll get too much out of it. So Final Fantasy 16 is one of them, but I think that'll come to PC shortly after PS5. So it just depends on how things pan out, really.
Ghost of Tsushima?
Actually, yeah, BMG, that's a very good shot. That is one. I'm actually surprised that hasn't had a PC announcement yet. Yeah. Same with what's it called? The Returnal. Same Returnal. We know a PC version of that exists. It's just sitting there waiting, I think, for an announcement. So yeah, there's a few games I'm definitely going to check when they come to PC, and because they've brought more games to PC, the backlog is less of an incentive to pick up a PlayStation 5 at this point, because a large portion of the backlog has been ported over, and they're continuing to do that. So we'll see what the next 6 to 12 months bring, I guess. Yeah.
It's funny because, like, I often think if they brought their games like day one to PC, what would I play them on? And I don't know what it is, and I think it's just conditioning. but like, I think
What
I'd
does
still
your
play
gut
them
tell
on
you?
PlayStation.
Well, you've got a Series
Like-
X, haven't you, Luke?
Huh?
You've got a
I've got a
Series
Series
X, haven't you?
What do you mean?
You've got an Xbox Series X, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can play all of Xbox's games on PC as well.
True, yeah,
so
very true,
how's that between your Xbox games on PC and console?
So I guess actually that's a good question because I have a Series X, but I tend to play most of the stuff on Series X on PC. Xbox games on PC Game Pass. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why. Like, I'm sure it's some like conditioning that Sony
Is that with a
have done.
controller as well, or do you play mouse and keyboard?
When I'm playing on PC,
Yes,
Xbox
like
games.
Xbox games on PC, yeah.
Oh no, usually with. I mean, it depends on the game, but mostly with a controller. Like
okay.
if it was a first-person shooter, I play keyboard and mouse. But if it's something third-person, I'll play.
Sure.
It just doesn't. I don't find it translates very well to keyboard. That kind of game, like God of War, for example. I don't think that translates particularly well to keyboard. But yeah, like I have to think about like what would I do if Final Fantasy 16 came day one, and we know it's not. But if it came day one to PC, would I play it there? And I don't know if I would. Like, there's just this weird like I get like there's this kind of excitement about playing something on PlayStation that kind of for me like started on PlayStation 4. And obviously that was because the games weren't coming to PC, and now I've almost been conditioned that they're not coming to PC.
This is why.
Yeah, that's a good
PlayStation
incentive to do it. I don't know. It's a bit like the reason, like for some people, like if all cinema films, if money wasn't a concern, but if everything at the cinema came out day one in your home, a lot of people would still go to the cinema to watch it. Because like there's like this draw, there's a kind of draw to it, and I know technically I would get a better experience on PC just of my rig, but I don't know what it is. It's very strange. It's really strange.
I think there's something about sitting in front of the TV, Luke. I think because generally with a PC, it's a smaller experience. You kind of I guess the closest to it doesn't factor in too much, but it's a much different, I think, experience sitting in front of a PC playing a game, especially when I'm not too sure the size of your monitor, but let's say you've got like a 32-inch monitor. It might not have HDR, or if it does, it might not be a particularly good implementation of HDR. In a lot of cases, I think there's something about sitting down in front of a big 4K. Your monitor might not be 4K, so there's just something about kind of like almost like the full fat experience in front of TV, in front of a TV. Well, I find so.
What's weird is I have because I have a TV as my monitor effectively.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a 48-inch OLED. That's my monitor.
Oh, okay.
So which is an LG.
Even less of an excuse.
Yeah, so like I'm kind of like, and my headphones are so much better here, like, and I've got a really, really good chair, so it's very comfortable. But it is like, no, I do think there is, and like it's one of the reasons why I don't think PC gaming is for everyone, even if you set it up in the way that you can somewhat replicate how a console. There's something about sometimes just sitting in front of a TV on a sofa in your living room or wherever, and kind of having that kind of experience as opposed to sitting in a office chair or equivalent, and you may have an objectively better experience. You may have something that's just as good or better, PlayStation 5, but maybe I don't know. It's just like a mental thing. It's very strange. Maybe I need to trial it with a game. Like I need to wait for something to come day one to PlayStation and PC, and then actually play it on PC first and see if it changes.
Well, I might do this as well, actually, because I think it's a really good question. Sorry, Scott. Unless you
want go for it, Pucks.
I say because I've got nowhere near as big a rig as what Luke has, but I built my current PC back in 2019, and even then it was it wasn't the latest stuff because of money reasons, but I was at a point where, especially in like mid-late 2010s, where a lot of my gaming was on PC because it felt like it was. I played on PC years ago anyway, but like the hardware stuff was catching up to the point where PC, it was also like the whole PCMR kind of mentality and that kind of stuff. But then when I jumped back on the Series X when that came out, like I really liked the whole it just works mentality as well. Like I've got dick about with driver updates and I mean, I know they're not complicated or a hassle, but there's little things that can go wrong sometimes on PC. But I suppose especially if a game's made for console as well, like again, assuming there's no bugs or it's been made well, it just works, right? It's just you just got a simple UI. You click on the game you want to play, and then boom, there it is. Rather than having to, Windows wants to do an update. It's got to restart. Your sound's cocking up, and oh Christ, all manner of things can go wrong on PC. Yeah, but
get out your Excel spreadsheet and check does it work and.
Luke, do you think there's anything to do with the type of experiences you typically get on PlayStation that's linked to that as well? You mentioned that your Xbox games you would play on PC. Going back to the conversation we just had about God of War and how cinematic the game is, I think that type of experience is suited better almost. You can kind of take it back to like the movie argument. If you're watching a movie, you want it on the big TV in the living room so you get as close to a cinematic sort of experience as possible. I guess games like God of War and The Last of Us lend themselves well to that type of experience, where games like Halo, for example, they're vastly different experience, and I guess you're losing less playing it on PC than maybe you would lose going from TV to PC for a PlayStation game like God of War or Last of Us. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
I totally get that. I think that is part of it. I think, as you say, like, goes back to this kind of cinema argument. Like the games that I guess PlayStation putting out are kind of like blockbuster style ones, like they're big kind of events almost as launches in of themselves, and the way that their games are built means that they are very kind of high budget, big blockbuster stuff. And I guess like you like, it's not as if I'd go, Pentament's coming out in a few days, I've got to watch that on the living room TV. Do you know, like play it on the, like, it's not that type of experience. And I also think that, like, I think Sony have conditioned a lot of people, myself included, to like kind of think that, and this will hopefully make sense, like you need to play these games on PlayStation.
Oh, that's marketing at work, that isn't it?
Yeah,
marketing is doing its thing there, mate.
Yeah, it is. I know it is. Like, I'm not oblivious to that fact. It's like you've got like, that's the way to experience the game. There's like a prestige almost, like when you boot up your Last of Us Part 2 on your PlayStation. Yeah. So I don't know. That would probably change, however, over time if they started day and dating it.
Yeah,
and it's not as if No, go ahead.
I was just going to say on that point, we did get a question on Twitter earlier, and someone did ask who we thought rivals from Xbox's first-party studios, who we thought would rival Sony Santa Monica in the type of experiences that they develop. I guess just Sony's parties in general. And two came up, The Coalition and Ninja Theory. So I guess we probably don't have time to go into that topic because that's a bloody massive topic itself. Maybe we'll save that for a future show. But I guess on that point, Luke, Hellblade 2, that's Xbox or PC? Do you think?
So again, I mean, we're getting into it now. We're getting answers, because when you ask that question, I'm like, I will absolutely play Hellblade on my Series X, because that's tied to my living room TV, and I've got a surround sound system, and I really want. And that's the type of game that's like a big, I mean, probably a smaller budget than God of War, but it looks like a big budget, cinematic style game.
Yeah,
so that makes sense. In one of those settings. But like Gears of War, like that's kind of I'd still probably play that. I don't know, because they do so well on PC, those games, like they really push them. So,
but even Hellblade 2 on PC, Luke, like,
Yeah, I mean,
but there is something about that game that I think lends itself more to The Last of Us, God of War, and the type of experience it offers that I think fits. But Starfield, for example, as much as I know people are extremely excited for that, I think it's a completely different experience that you wouldn't lose anything from playing it on PC. If anything, you'll gain something because
I think you'll
probably
you'll gain those extra frames
exactly.
playing it on PCs.
Yeah, you don't have the 30 FPS on console. But yeah, I think Hellblade is an example of the direction that I think Xbox needs to go with some of their games. I don't think obviously every game needs to be that type of experience, but I do think they need more of that type of experience in their first party portfolio to try and rival Sony in that regard.
Yep. BMG, we know the game, hopefully, that will be like that, which is Indiana Jones. Be that game.
Indeed, that's the only game from the Xbox side that I can see rival Santa Monica is Indiana Jones.
It would be weird if it didn't, I think, wouldn't it? Like, it'd be weird if it was a different type of game to what we're... Because I'm expecting, like, surely it's got to be, like, action-adventure set pieces.
It's going to be Uncharted.
Yeah,
it's going to be a type of Uncharted. Yeah,
it's got to steal from the series
1950s.
that effectively stole from it. Like that was inspired.
It's about
by
to say
it.
the same. Yeah, It's got to be.
It's got to be. So like, if it comes out and it's like a, first person, I don't know, first person shooter-ish game. Not that it could be, but I don't know. Like Machine Games have never made something like that. So I'm really interested to see what it is, but surely it's...
But neither did Guerrilla. Guerrilla Games, they'd always done first person.
Yep, spot on. They've never made something like Horizon, and then they did. So
well, I'd seen some supposedly leaked images of the Indiana Jones game, and if they're true, if it is true, it looks, just from what you can see, looks good in game pictures. So I'm hoping it's going to be amazing. Third person action adventure set in the 50s, 60s, something like that. It'd be fun. It'd be good. An actual proper Indiana Jones adventure. And I'm assuming it's going to sort of tie in with the film coming out next year, because they delayed that, didn't they, till next year? So maybe get the film out, tie the game into it. But I'm looking forward to it. That's probably one of my most anticipated games from Xbox Bethesda is Indiana Jones. Yeah. So
I still think that's going to be multi-platform, personally. Not that changes anything, but I think it's not going to be an exclusive that we can look to compare. I know that doesn't matter an awful lot, but I think, something like, if you're directly comparing first-party output, I don't necessarily think... Well, you can... Machine Games are still going to be first party at that point, but I think it will be a multi-platform game. Personally, we'll have to wait and see on that. I'm really curious as to what they do with Perfect Dark, Fable, obviously Hellblade. I'm really curious as to what direction Gears go. The Coalition go with Gears. I'm really hoping they can just push Gears onto that sort of level. I think they can do it. I just think do they have the balls to do it? Because I think it would be quite a transition for that game or that franchise, and they could piss a lot of people off, like the established fans of that game. But I do certainly think they've got the ability to do it, to create a game that rivals that. The problem that I've got is I don't think they can do it with Gears of War. I think that franchise, nothing against the franchise, Stubbs, nothing against the franchise. But I think that franchise is established in a way now that I think they couldn't do it with that. Not because they can't. I think it's just, they wouldn't want to, because they maybe fear pissing off the existing fan base. And they kind of limited it to, maybe they could do a Gears of War, not like a continuation of Gears 5, but maybe another game in that universe that helps rival it somewhat. I think 5 had some teasers of what they could do, and I just really want them to commit to some of those ideas that they quite obviously had in 5 for whatever they do next as well.
I'd rather see Gears of War go and not come back. It's the same game over 5 games. It is awful. It's just stupid. Right, we've defeated the army, we're moving on to the next one. Oh, there's more hive or whatever they're called, locusts coming again. Get them back. Oh, let's do the same in the 3rd game. Let's do it the same in the 4th. Let's do it in the 5th, but this time You're related to one of them. What? What's
Spoilers,
No.
BMG.
Oh yeah, sorry. If someone else played it, don't worry. You still fight the locusts. Well,
Yeah.
Don't
In a
forget the
roundabout way, that is
don't forget the
true.
DBs.
Yeah.
as well.
How much do you want to bet?
Yeah, no, not the DBs. Get rid of the DBs.
Who-
DBs suck.
Should we?
DBs
Does
and the
anyone want to
Prometheans.
put? Let's put money on that we're going to fight the locusts in Gears 6. And this time, now it's not grandma. Now it's granddad. This time that you're going for. Let's have a cousin twice removed for Gears 7. Why not? Why not? This time, here's the twist in Gears 6. You just play as the robot. That's it. You just play the robot all the way through the
Play as
game.
a DB.
Actually, I'll actually like the sound of that, BMG.
Yeah.
Let's cancel Gears. I'm going to start. What's that site where you can set up petitions? Let's get cancel Gears.
Change.org. Yeah.
Changed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and Stubbs has just put in the chat. He wasn't too sure what I was getting at. I guess what I was trying to say is I think they won't deviate too far from the existing formula in Gears, almost as BMG quite eloquently put there. That will hold them back somewhat, wanting to stick to that existing formula. So I think by branching out to a new franchise, they can kind of be unchained somewhat. I think that's why a lot of people who maybe aren't fans of the Gears franchise, we've had this conversation in the past, have said they really want to see the Coalition do something new. And it's not because they don't like Gears or they don't like the Coalition or anything like that. It's because they can see the talent that team have, and they kind of want to see it unshackled a little bit.
Like to me, like because I completely agree with that, and I'm like, what could they like? What's holding them back from doing that? And I think part of it is probably the multiplayer element. That if you fundamentally change whatever the single player campaign is, then how do you do multiplayer? But I think to me, like the answer should be pretty simple for that, which is that if they want to go in a completely different direction, you just make it the multiplayer free to play and you just release it separately. It would do well enough on its own. You have like a traditional Gears style game in your multiplayer, but then in your single player, you're unshackled from having to make that same mechanic.
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want, and surely, because I think the thing is, there are parallels, I guess, with God of War, because the fourth game in that Ascension was a good game. It was it was enjoyable, but people were tired of it. People were just tired of the same formula. For 4 games, and I'm got to the end of 5 and I really liked 5, but I was like, okay, kind of getting a bit tired of this now. When there's not, and I think in 5 what they tried to, you can see they were really trying to kind of pivot out of a lot of the tropes of Gears games, giving you open hub areas, for example, where there's optional stuff to do. There's other bits in that game as well, but fundamentally same game that Gears has always been. It just feels and I just wish, they're so talented, and I really think I've always wanted them to do like a horror game in Gears. Like Gears has always been great when it's had the horror elements in. Like, do a horror game, make it so do a survival horror game. Do something. They
could still do it in that universe as well. They don't necessarily have to abandon that universe, because I know that's got a rich history. And I think, honestly, the same could be said for 343 and Halo. Halo's maybe not Infinite's not necessarily a good example because they maybe made an arse of it, but I really enjoyed what 343 did with the campaign, but they managed to keep the multiplayer separate, as he said, Luke. But yeah, I think they're both universes where they could really do with exploring other genres in those universes, and cutting free of the existing formula to offer something like truly unique but contained within Halo or Gears, or whatever it is.
Matrix.
So
get a Matrix game.
Matrix.
Bring back the Matrix MMO. Give it to the Coalition.
Made in UE5. I reckon really all they need to do actually is just bring Marcus back properly, playable character, give him an act. That's it. There we go.
Yeah.
And give him, and in fact, what they need to do is they need to go back and have it so when JD was like 8, he's like your companion with Marcus. In fact, that just works because Marcus is in many ways like Kratos. So just give him an axe.
Yeah, and give JD a bow. Maybe a
Give
cross.
JD a
Well,
bow.
no, you've got a
Like
talk bow. You've got a talk bow
Yeah,
in,
talk bow.
in Gears. Yeah, yeah. They've got a skiff, and in God of War, you've got the rowing board.
Yeah.
You can just have Marcus going around going,
Boy, boy.
No, you should say something different. Maybe you should say like child instead, rather than something else.
Child.
Doesn't have the
Stop it,
same.
child.
Doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Or maybe it's Kate's dad, and he just shouts "girl" every time.
Yeah, do that.
I would enjoy that. So
I reckon there's going to be a twist that Marcus actually had an affair with the Locust Queen, and that whatever that girl's called, they're technically all related, and it's boom. There
Marcus
you
is a locust.
go. Yeah, that's it. He's actually a locust. Caught some
Yeah, he was
STI
a
off the
locust.
Locust Queen.
it's a locus STI. I think that might be where we have to end the show on. We'll just leave it on a locust STI. I'm sure Microsoft's lawyers will be in touch very soon, BMG.
Oh, yeah, they'd probably trademark that.
There's someone from the coalition watching this now going, say, why does he know our storyline?
What's he done? How does he know we're doing Gear 6?
These leaks are getting out of hand.
Oh, dear. So really, we can take away from all this that Gears should be cancelled.
I think that's the logical conclusion we've come to,
Yeah.
actually. The...
To be fair, in Gears 5, you did have a hammer. That was
You did, yeah. That was pretty good. That hammer.
You did have the hammer as well. So, yeah.
Just before we disappear, has anyone tried the Halo Infinite co-op campaign yet? Actually played it with.
It's very good.
Is it me? I was just thinking, was it just me? Me and I'm a Ghostbuster Ash from XBL. We had a brief play on it, and it just makes the campaign feel so fresh and new, and it was just fun. It was just like, why wasn't this here at day one? It was just fun. It felt like a different game. It was really good. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really made me appreciate that campaign and that open world a bit more. As well, being able to play it with friends. Even just like those three of us playing, and we were just grappling each other and just sending ourselves flying across the map because we've grappled each other and stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
The physics of the dead characters.
Surprisingly, it's been relatively bug free in my experience. There's a lot of fun physics, like if you drive into someone when they're stood against a wall in a ghost and they just go flying. Oh, there is so much fun to be had in that.
Next time you jump in, just try and teabag a character you've just killed and watch the body movement.
I'll give that a shot, BMG.
Oh, it's hilarious. Sorry, we just like it was just funny. Well, yeah.
Do we?
On that bombshell.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say pucks.
Yeah, locusts, STIs, and teabagging.
Are you doing the outro, Scott, or would you like me to do it?
Just go for it, mate. You're steering the ship this week. So
no, sure thing. So thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. That's been a really good discussion. Thank you for having you on as well, BMG. It's been great having you on, hearing your thoughts and opinions about all sorts, and ending our discussion on Locust STIs. I didn't quite expect it to go that way this evening, but and apologies everyone as well for our technical issues at the beginning. We're moving to OBS. We've done so for a couple of weeks. First show went really smoothly, and the last couple, for some reason, just seem to have decided not to work very well. But we will get these niggles sorted out, and we will have a hopefully more consistent show moving forward. But outside of that, I think that's us for this evening. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
Hey guys.